Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Hazierah binti Muhammad Nasir. For my final year project is a documentary on the topic of heritage documentary on the relocation of Kampung Laut Old Mosque as an attraction in Kampung Laut Heritage Village project. So this documentary is history of Kampung Laut Old Mosque and also the professional views on the relocation project of Kampung Laut Mosque that I have interviewed Dato' A.R. Hazierah, A.R. Azim, TPR Afzan and Dr. Hazman Hazumi, who is the contractor conservator for this project. And the aim of this documentary is to educate the community on the relocation project in terms of heritage and conservation, and also to give more awareness on the existence of Kampung Laut Mosque. Kampung Laut Mosque is very significant that need to be acknowledged. A summary of this documentary is about Kampung Laut Mosque, which was built in the 18th century, about 300 years ago. There are other resources that state it was built in the 14th century, about 400 to 500 years ago, but it was based on theoretical. There are no evidence found. It shows how significant Kampung Laut Mosque is because of the backstory that state it was built by ulama that come from Champa, come from Jawa, and so on and so forth. The original site is actually at Tumpat, Kelantan, at the river side of Kelantan River. However, the river alignment of Kelantan River that changes time to time, and it causes the sand erosion that causes Kampung Laut Mosque almost topple down in the river. And right now, the original site has already eaten up by the river, meaning that the site is in the river because the community at that time want to save Kampung Laut Old Mosque. They relocate it to Nilampuri, and it has been resided in Nilampuri since its relocation in 1968. It's been resided for more than 50 years. Last year in 2020, ECERDC has started a project to relocate Kampung Laut Mosque back to the original site. This is a very rare project which has never been done before in Malaysia. I think this is the first project that I have ever done in Malaysia. The relocate building is relocated back to its original site, and it has raised concern with scholars that by relocating a heritage building, it's require dismantling and reconstruction, and they concern that it can affect the authenticity and the forms and so on and so forth. So I have interviewed several professionals with the background of heritage and conservation, and they have given some justification to this relocation project. And from my findings, it's focused on authenticity. In terms of authenticity, a summary from the justification from the professional that heritage building it should be OUV, which is outstanding universal value, and OUV must have authenticity and integrity, which is under the subscribed under the UNESCO lah. And authenticity, there are two forms. There are natural form and cultural form. In cultural form, there are several authenticity value, which is the form and design, the material substances, the setting, location, the feelings, so on and so forth lah. And by relocating Kampung Laut Mosque back to its site, it will add more authenticity in terms of location and setting. For the recommendation, this is what interesting about my final year project is because I've interviewed a different professional background, an architect and also views from town planner, and their views is quite interesting lah for me. And an architect, Dato' Hazierah, has mentioned that to improve the environment of Kampung Laut Mas in the context of conservation, it should bring back the original setting, meaning that to plant coconut trees, to put grass and to avoid premix car park is bring back the feeling of kampung, and that is adding more authenticity to its setting lah. And in terms of the structure, Datuk Hajina mentioned that it should retain its original structure and to avoid any addition to the original structure. And in terms of installation, he suggests that the pendulum lamp, it can be installed upward. It is to minimize the visibility of other installation and to focus more on the originality of the structure itself. And in terms of the view of town planner, TPR Afzal mentioned that to improve the environment of Kampung Laut Mas is to bring back the people, the community, to let the community resettle in Kampung Laut Mas and to take care of Kampung Laut Mas, to use Kampung Laut Mas. It's not focused on the tourists first. It must focus on the community first, because when the community resettle, it will make the Kampung Laut Mas as a prominent heritage building, and it will attract tourists later on. Mentioned also by Datuk Hajida is to the community must be proud of the heritage building, must be proud of the history itself, the whole itself. And that is what preserve the Kampung Laut Mas in terms of heritage. I've recorded the dismantling process, the relocation process of Kampung Laut Mas, how it was dismantled and reconstructed. However, the the project is still ongoing, so I focus more on the dismantling process lah. And for the I've created an animation for the dismantling process. For me, this project is very interesting, and it is the best project that I've done in my in overall of my 4 years studies. My final year project is the best project I've done, and I didn't even know on the existence of Kampung Laut Mas before, and I didn't know that Kampung Laut Mas is the oldest mosque in Malaysia, and the history itself is very significant and very interesting, that people should acknowledge. And if the relocation project is done correctly according to the professional views and recommendation, I think it can be a benchmark for a conservation project. In terms of bringing back the history to the community, it must be focused on the community first, because it is a heritage building, and heritage must have a community to preserve the building. That's all for me. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.